Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Carly from Carly's Creative Clay. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a dolphin, but I'm going to get started with the thing I do every week, which is showing off something that's available to buy in my shop. The link to it's in the top corner. Last week I showed you how to make this Christmas dragon, and I wanted to show you it finished. Problem is, holographic glitter does not show up well on camera, but all across its chest you can kind of see in some of the light that it's got holographic glitter all through its chest and wings. I made the wreath off camera because the stream got very long. I made those little leaf shapes and I literally just put them tip to tip and then the ends to each other. Underneath, if you can see, there is a ring of green clay holding it in its shape. The Christmas hat, you start out with a ball, you flatten it into more of a tire shape, then you push a hole in it with a stick and bring the hole out. If you try and make it as a flat sheet and then join it, you will end up with quite an obvious join line. That's pretty hard to get rid of. But apart from that, everything else was done on stream, and I'm very pleased with how he's turned out. He is now in my Etsy shop for £30. And since I was showing you the Christmas dragon, I thought I would show you two other Christmassy bits that I've got. These are both £25. They're trinket boxes. They're some of my early work, so they're not as flush to the box as some of my later ones are, but they still fit quite good and they still look really good, and I'm very pleased with what's on top. So we got a Christmas tree, presents, and a little black cat sat in front of it on a Christmas tree shaped box. This one, bit of silver clay just so that it held it in an angle that you could see. It's a grey cat batting at the balls. And again, lots of presents, star on the top, and a box. Both of these are 25. The dragon is 30. So, bit of a Christmassy theme one for us today. Let's put these out the way. Just dropping things, ignore me a second. There we go. Right. There. Right, dolphins. It's a new one for me. Not to make, but to do on stream. I started out, I made my first dolphin. This is where I'm at so far. Done my trademark blue swirly clay and mounted a crystal. I have a drawer of them, different hearts. I don't like the back of them. I think they look a little bit kind of dull, so I push clay around them and I think they look a lot better once they're mounted in a heart. Hi Auntie Healthy Life. I'm literally just getting started. I've just shown you where I'm at so far, which is my first dolphin was made off camera, and we're going to make the next one. Right, so what I've got started with, bit of wire, bent in half, twisted at the bottom, and the two end bits just slightly fanned out. Pretty easy to see. Didn't need to do that on screen because I'm using quite strong wire. It's quite a low gauge florist wire. it is a bit of a struggle to get that bending, but it's important to do so. Now, the reason why I'm using a wireframe or armature is because I want them to stand up on their towel. I don't want the clay to risk falling over in the oven, and this will give it a lot more structural strength. Sorry, I've still got that cough. Right, I want to pad out just that middle bit with a bit of foil because it's going to be quite thick and you need all the clay to reach temperature in order for it all to turn to solid plastic in the oven, or you'll end up with a soft middle, which is a lot more unstable than hard compacted tinfoil is. So if you've got a real thick bit and you can use foil to pad it, I would. I've heard of people using all manner of things instead of foil. If it'll go through the oven on the temperature of your clay, then you're fine. Many people are actual professional clay artists using sweet wrappers, especially around Christmas time. Apparently all the tinfoil that's on your toffees and all that sort of stuff, your quality streets, they all go in absolutely fine as armatures. Just don't put in the plastic wrap. But yeah, so if you're running out of tinfoil and you happen to want to have an excuse for eating chocolate, then both are achieved under that one. Right, so what I need to do is force it in between that loop so that we'll have some height on the back and a bit of a padded tummy. Now this really just takes a bit of wedging. You can, if you're not up for wedging it, you can pull this open a bit more. You can put your tinfoil in before you shape it, but that just gives you another thing to try and get in the right place when you're already trying to twist wires. And you see, just squidge it a bit and you get it in. Now we need to try and get a rounded stomachish sort of shape, and you'll find by shaping this, especially on a glass board, putting a bit of pressure on and just shaping it, avoiding those sharp ends, because that's how, can you see, I've got a big old plaster because I've got a cut across my hand there because I didn't pay attention to those sharp ends. So what I'm doing, this has to be off camera because the edge of my board's off camera. So what I'll do is I'll get I'll do it on that. I need a flat edge just to roll the underside on and loop the towel under like that. Sorry, like that. You see? So then you can get a decent roll and put pressure on to shape that tummy. But mind your fingers again with those sharp pointy bits. Sorry, coughing again. Right, can you see I'm now getting that rounded shape that I want for that body, and the foil is getting nicely compacted in. I think that is almost there for what I want. Once you're happy with it, get yourself some masking tape just to hold it in place. So I start up at the tip like that. I'm just going around it until I hit that bottom like that. I'm gonna have a drink. Sorry about the traffic noise. I generally live on a quiet street, but for some reason today we've had a lot of traffic down it. Now, I was looking up some dolphin facts, and the first thing that I found really interesting about them is they've got such a crossover and confusion between whales, dolphins and porpoises. And the reason why there's a lot of confusion is there's a lot of very similar lineages, and they really do have a lot of crossover. So for instance, an orca, even though it belongs to the suborder of small-toothed whales, is also known as the largest dolphin. So it's both a whale and a dolphin. And it don't even stop there. Some definitely you look like a dolphin and have all the right lineage and everything, you're a dolphin. Have whale in their names. And then you throw in porpoises and it gets even more confused, because a porpoise, if you look at it, they're a lot more stockier than dolphins. They've not got the long muzzle. But they're very, very similar in look. They look like a crossover between a very small grey whale and a dolphin. So yeah, so if you're confused between whether it's a dolphin, a whale or a porpoise, don't feel bad about it. So are the rest of us, and by the sounds of it, kinda so are the scientists. So yeah, all confusing stuff. But yes, I'm going for the more bottle-nosed grey dolphin, the more common dolphin. Now, mixed up some darker grey and some lighter grey. Literally get mostly white, put a pinch of black in it, and start with a small amount, and it's easier to add more of your darker colour than it is to try and get it back down to a lighter shade once you made it too dark. So it can be annoying when you've mixed in and it's still too light, and then you've got to do the mixing again and it's still too light, and you're there sort of 6 to 8 times still adding bits in. But I still find that is a better strategy than ending up with a huge amount of one colour left over. So I've stretched it over that back bit, making sure I've not trapped any air bubbles. If you get a crack like that down it, don't worry about it. We're a long old way from this being the finished surface. Your concern at the moment is wrapping it round and making sure you're not trapping any air. So just push any air gaps towards the outside edge of the clay, and your risk points are at the edges of where you've put tin foil, where it goes just into straight wire. It can be easy to trap a pocket of air. So I push from the base of that bit of foil and then push outwards, instead of going from the very edge of the clay and then securing it like that. If you've trapped air, it's not got anywhere to go to. So bear in mind that you're pushing air out when you're securing your clay. Now, it doesn't matter that I've not completely covered the belly, because we're going to put in a lighter strip across that anyway. So long as the back's mostly covered. And can you see, I'm just working and making sure I've not trapped air around that head. I'm not worried about any of those bumps or joining lines, because I'm going to be adding more clay to that head shape. So lastly, I'm bringing some of that clay down because they have quite a thin towel, and we've got to add some light colour to that as well and still keep it thin enough. I think that one is probably the thickest I want to do as far as towels go. So what I've done is I've got some images off of Google Image, dolphins from different angles jumping. When you do your model making, this is my picture, do go online and look for different images of the animal or person that you're making from different sides so you can make sure that the shapes you're making are correct and the proportions are correct. Now, to get this towel, the first thing I'm going to do is just put the clay a big bit so that it's got enough to wrap around, but I'm putting that crossover right in the middle like that, and then I'm bringing this edge over, and again, don't trap air down that sideline, so make sure you're pushing against the wire like that, then bring the other side over, and again, don't trap air. It looks odd that there's that big bump, but we are getting rid of that. So right now it's a manatee. Would make a perfect manatee. So if you're going for that, it's an easier end product than a dolphin. You just need to pinch and flatten out that towel fluke, and then you'll be absolutely fine. Just putting on the flippers. And manatee does tend to have that sort of bulbous head to them and the round nose. So, sorry, the lack of bulbous head that a dolphin has. So if you want to start with a really cute marine mammal that's on the easier side, I would say also whales are quite a lot easier, because again they tend to have that flat towel, but you have a more complex mouth to make with them. So I will be doing whales in a future one, I promise. Right, now what I'm finding is, let's bring up that image again of the dolphins. How long a fin section do they have at the end? So it is quite a long thinner section. So that does look about right actually. I don't need to add more clay. But I don't need to add more clay there, which is something I was wondering if I did. If you find when you start building your clay onto your armature that you've got not enough bulk in any part, you just literally add bits on, and I'm going to show you how to do that with the head once I've got this towel how I want. So first thing to do is put a divide in, and I'm just using my fingers to do that, and then I'm going to pinch roughly the shape of that towel flipper out. Now that is far too big a towel, so I'm just going to shrink the bottom of that, just have a fiddle until I get it looking how I want. Let's just blend out those join lines there. Now that leading edge is actually quite thin because you want to be able to not resist the water along that edge, so you want to pinch it out a bit flat. Now, if you're not careful, what you'll find, can you see the underside? I've got, let's see if I can get the lights right, that little pit there. What's happened is I bent the towel down and the wire, can you see I poked the wire through the clay there? If that happens to you, push it back down to where you want. Push it back down to where you want. And there we go, that's centre. Right, push it back down to where you want, so you've now got a pit rather than a wire sticking out. Then get a pinch of the same colour clay and just put it straight over the hole. I just use my thumb, push it in, and then blend the edges out, either using your fingers or a tool, and try and be more careful to not do such a strong bend in future. So there we go, just blending out all the join lines there. If you do find that you forget a join line, you can just say it's a battle scar, because dolphins do actually get into fights sometimes, especially with orcas and things like that. There are other predators other than man out there, but we are by far the worst problem they have. Just going to get my little rubber tip tool because I want to just put more of a point in that middle section. Then I bring the tips out. There we go. Yeah, so the males definitely do fight. They also are known to play, it's almost like a sport with each other. They get into teams and they pick a bit of seaweed, and the goal is to keep hold of the seaweed and pass it to your teammates without passing it to your opponent's team. It's a bit like football, and especially the young bachelors, they get involved in this, and it's a way of different pods making friends with each other and sizing each other up in a friendlier way. There is video of it if you look online, and it's really awesome to think that they got a complex sport going on. Right, I'm going to pinch in a spine, so you don't want to be too heavy handed on this, because the spine, you see a bit of a bump, but it's not a real prominent point on any mammal that is healthy. If they're underweight, if you're looking for a starved, yeah, I know, dolphin football, they definitely have names. There has been a really interesting observation, and I followed the story for ages. Back in the 80s or 70s, a baby dolphin, a male, was born whose lung capacities, his lungs were damaged, and he couldn't dive down and hunt. Hang on, dolphin or whale? No, that's a wild story. Scrap it. We're talking dolphins. Well, yes, okay, I'll tell you quickly this whale story since I started. The whale couldn't dive down to the depths to feed, so one of the adults would stay with it, and the other adults would bring it food up, or it would feed at a later point when another was watching it. Everyone thought it wasn't going to survive, but it lasted out really well because they all took a hand in help looking after it. And once it got older, it was found to travel to the pod will travel to a different pod. They will take this disabled whale on, look after it for a while, socialise with it, everything was fine, and then after a couple of months they'd take it onto another pod, so everyone shared in looking after it. And it was a nice inclusive disability story, and he did go on, I think, to father young, and the young were fine. But it's just really interesting how they can show us how we really should be treating our disabled. Right, now I cut a big old chunk of clay. What I'm going to do is smush that into that forehead there. And we're going to work on just smoothing out all the join lines around it before we look at shaping at all. I know, right? Isn't it adorable? Now, we're going to use that big bit of clay that I've just smushed on there to shape its head and its beak. So at the moment it's all about getting rid of the join lines before we start shaping it, so it doesn't matter, it looks like a wow. We've
gone red.
We've gone red? What does gone red mean?
We've got an internet connection problem.
Apparently we've got an internet connection problem. Can you still hear me, Arty Life, or have I lost the stream? Oh, yellow, green.
Okay, it's back.
It's back. Right, I smoothed all that clay on. Now we're looking more like a seal. But we need to get dolphin in. So they have quite a prominent head bump or melon. They use that to help them with echolocation, and that is where you bounce a sound, make a sound, and it bounces off of things, and you can use it to read your environment. So bats use it, but dolphins also do, and having that big head helps them tell the direction things are bouncing in off of. And then they got quite a thin, long mouth, so we're looking more like that. Now the other thing, the head comes down and there's quite a distinct stop, and then the nose sort of comes up like that. So that's the sort of shape you're looking for from that head. And just check we haven't gotten rid of our spine. That will go to the base of the neck. So there. Now for that lighter coloured tummy. So getting a bit of lighter grey. Now something else which I've known for ages, which is whales and dolphins. I'm not sure about orcas, but I know definitely whales and dolphins. When they're in the womb, when their mums are producing them. Oh, hello. Did I drop off? Was it me? Sorry. Our internet must have cut off. We do record it from here, so I'm hoping I'll upload the version without anything cut out. But I joined that neck on. I joined that neck on and just smoothed it all in, and then I got the excess clay and shaped that sort of rounded head, and then pulled a pinch out into that nose.
Bex Art says, yes, lol, it's fine, don't worry.
Oh dear. The internet is such a mixed thing. It can be wonderful when it's working, and then it just falls over and we're lost. Right, so Dolphins and whales, I'm not sure about orcas. When they're in the womb, they grow little legs, and then those little legs actually grow back into them, and then they form into what we know as with the shape of dolphins. And I found pictures of this. So whilst I'm just measuring out and getting that stomach in the right shape and place, I'll just get that picture up for you. Can you see those two little bumps? They are residual leg stumps. So it just goes to show dolphins were once land animals that evolved into water-based animals. So there's a bit of evolution at work in picture. Now, you can just leave it pushed on roughly, but can you see that big bumped lip? I'm just going to go around and start to push that up the side so it looks more like it's joined to the dolphin as one solid bit of flesh rather than an added layer. And it's harder to see, so I thought I'd explain what I'm doing rather than just talking and going around and pinching. But the join between the light grey and the dark grey isn't usually a completely crisp straight line. So if you do find that you over smudge your light onto your dark grey, it's not a loss, you haven't ruined your piece. But where I've done this a few times, especially with dragon tummies, I've gotten quite good at getting it where I want and still smoothing it in. There we go, almost there. Now, bit down by the towel, can you see just by blending that line in a bit, it looks more natural? So there's a bit that's been blended in, there's a bit that isn't, so there's still that dipped line. You just go along and just smudge it with your finger on the lighter side. Part of becoming good at polymer clay is learning to lighten your touch. You need quite light hands, so you need to get used to holding your clay item without really firmly gripping it. You need to learn to be conscious of how hard you're pushing, even with the smoothing hands, the bits that you're working on and shaping with. So when people say it comes with experience, that's the kind of thing that can't be taught, and you have just got to spend a few years handling it, making mistakes. And luckily when you make mistakes, you can just go over and make little corrections and it all goes back to what you want. So just putting that spine back in, because I was too heavy on the back and that got rid of the spine. There we go, that's better. Right, all smoothed in. I'm getting rid of some of these finger marks, making sure the nose is how I want and all the positioning is right before we go to put on any. There we go, that's what I wanted. Thank you. So that's what I'm aiming for. Can you zoom in? Focus, there you go. So now is the time to change it before you add your flippers. But I'm happy with that, so I'm going to go on to put in a little mouth, use an X-Acto blade, and you just gently go around with your blade and put in a little mouth ridge. There we go. Now,
Charlie Star says, "Hi everyone, finally I'm here. Sorry my phone went."
hi Charlie.
Good.
I weren't sure I was
Wish we
going to
could look.
see you because of tomorrow.
Mozart said, I've swam with dolphins, which was so amazing. And Charlie Star says, hope everyone's doing well.
Can you see I put a mouth in? Yes.
Mozart said they've swum with dolphins.
You swum with dolphins. I would love to. I have mixed feelings about it. I would love to go and be able to swim with wild dolphins, although I worry about habituating them to humans too much. I'm not sure how I feel about some of the marine parks where you can go and swim in pools with them. I tend to find that mostly they don't have enough space and they're a bit stressed, but some of the parks are good.
Charlie Star says, I'd love to live to swim with dolphins, and that dolphin is super cute so far.
Thank you. So I cut a slice off of that and I've divided it so that two of them are the same bit, and I got enough to put the back, what are they, dorsal fin. Right, so these two I'm going to roll into balls, and like I've shown before, you cut a lot of time out by dual wielding.
Charlie Star says, hell no, I wouldn't want to go to a marine park, I'd go to their natural habitat.
Yeah,
Not everyone can manage that.
I know, it's difficult, it's all very difficult, especially since we don't get many dolphins in UK waters because they're a bit cold for them. Right, so what I've done, I do it again on here.
XR says, they feel so smooth yet spongy. I'm so jealous.
It sounds amazing. So I brought it out into a teardrop, then I flattened that teardrop a bit, and then I'm making sure we've got a decent point on. I'm just using my thumb to curve it. Then that bottom edge, I'm going to pinch it flat. And that's the start of a flipper. So make sure that you're okay with the mirrored image. So basically the best side is the side you're going to want facing up. So make sure your two best sides are mirrored of each other, because it's a shame when you've got a scruffy side on one side and a really neat side on the other side. But there we go, I'm making sure that they look very much the same as each other. So it's worth having a fiddle whilst they're on a board before you attach them. Now, you go in a little bit below the neck, along the line that joins the light to the dark. You're just pushing that round side, keeping that shape in. Now, it's your choice. If you want to keep that join line like that. If you don't, you can either use a rubber tool like this and just come round and start to smooth it. But I find the flex on the rubber tool stops me actually picking the clay up properly. So I tend to like my trusty ball tool, which I've used so much I've had to redo the handle because the handle broke. That's why it's got this big pink bit on it. But if you're looking on eBay to buy one, it actually came with a wooden handle as part of the set. So here's the smaller one. So that's what you're looking for. brown wooden handled ball tools, and they're really cheap off eBay. I know that. Right, I'm just picking up the clay from the edge and just bringing it down and smoothing it against where I'm joining. And I know it leaves that sort of bumpy, ridgy mark. Don't freak out, it's fine. We will get rid of that after. But now we're just focusing on getting rid of that join line using the ball tool. You can also, if you ain't got ball tools, just use the very tip of your finger, just get it in that gap and just pull away, and that's how you're going to smooth it all in. Now, I think it's worth the effort. I showed you what it looked like before I smoothed it all in. This is it now. It looks more like it's part of the animal rather than just stuck on. So that's my argument for doing that level of faffing. Now, you want to get your flippers in line with each other so they make a nice little C shape. Okay? And again, have a little fiddle, get them right. Quick drink because I'm starting to sound like Selma again from The Simpsons. And again, I'm going back round to smooth this one in. Just picking up the edge, I'm just pulling it against the main body of the clay just to make sure it's joined on properly. Now, if you weren't going to smooth the edging, you still need to make sure you firmly push these flippers on, because I have had it where clay has come loose after baking because I've not put enough attention to making sure it's pushed on properly. That comes with experience, but it's definitely a thing. That's why I like my little ball tools, because they really do get in there and push the clay on. But I tend to go around with my hands and smooth in. Now, I know there are a lot of clayers that use vinyl gloves when they work with clay to make sure that they're not putting fingerprints on their clay. And hats off to you guys, you're wizards.
You only need to go, yeah.
I have tried it earlier, and the creases the gloves had in them left marks all over the clay.
Don't forget your gloves were non-vinyl. No, they were non-latex.
They were non-latex, but they should have worked the same as latex gloves. It's the creases that you get in them. I much prefer bare hands, and then you just smooth the fingerprints out after. So,
You need to try and stay
there we go. We now have the flippers on. Right, so let's get going with a blowhole. I'm going to use my tiny ball tool, and what you find is it's in a semicircle from the eyes around the back of the head. So you're looking the back, middle, there. And you need to make your hole deep enough so it actually looks like it's a hole going into the head rather than just a little indentation. So we're now flippers and blowhole. I'm going to put a couple of little dents in on where I want the eyes.
Charlie Star asks, what do you think to using clay softener to remove prints from work?
It's mixed.
Have you tried it?
I have tried it. It can leave the clay sticky so that they end up with more prints on them than when you started, because you can't handle it or move it around. I just find once you've finished making what you're making, go over at the very last point and just gently stroke it, and the fingerprints come away. So I don't find that I need to even use isopropyl or rubbing alcohol to get rid of fingerprints.
Bex asks, I'm curious how you made the base.
Right, the base, it's a swirly clay that I use all over the place. I will just attach this and I'll give you a demonstration. So this is how I want this dolphin. And I'm just going to make sure it's firmly pushed down onto that base before I put the back spike in. The dorsal fin rather. So we're now like that. So I've got dorsal fin and eyes to do. Right. Do you mind if I quickly put the dorsal fin on first? And then I'll make some swirly clay to show you how I made it. Because I don't want to mix colours and accidentally end up needing to go wash my hands. So, same as what I did with the flippers, but I'm just making it thicker. And that point goes right over and does more of a hook. So just give it a little tap and encourage it down to a hook. Like that. Once you're happy with its shape, it goes further down than you expect. It's further behind the flippers, so about there. Cool. And again, make sure it's pushed on firmly without smudging up any of your work. And then I find with the shape of this, I don't need to go around with the ball tool. I can just literally come in with my thumbs and just smudge it in. I love that word, smudge. Smudge it in so you don't see the join lines, just by stroking along that back. You don't really need to get in and get rid of that underside join line, although if you're really picky you can. But just make sure it's...
Do you mind pushing it forward a bit?
Sorry, I'll give you a look just in 2 seconds. There we go. So, like that. I can see there's a little bump under there. So I'm going to pull that hook just up a bit so I can get my finger under and just smooth that out. And then put it back in a second.
Still can't see.
Sorry, there we go. Like that. And I'm just making sure the spine's how I want it and the shape's what I want, and it's all laying how I want. There we go. Perfect. So all I've got to do is some eyes and show you how to make a blue swirly base. So let's get some of my pots of blues. What I've got is a big plastic drawer unit just off of camera over there, full of drawers like this, and that's where I put my mixed clays. So let's do a very, very quick blue swirl, and I use it on so many things it won't be a problem for me to have extra made up. So you start out with sticks of your colour, and you need them in either 2 sticks together or 3 sticks together. It don't matter how many colours you add in, you just end up with a bigger block at the end. So that would be a 2 stick together. I'll show you one with a 3 stick. So let's go a bit of that sort of teal colour. Sometimes I will put several sticks of the same shade of blue if I want more of one colour in the mix, like more of that one colour in the mix. So it all depends on what you're looking for. I've got some of that. Let's do a dark blue. What you're looking for is your end result. Now, unfortunately, you will never, ever, ever, ever get two mixes the same. It's a lot like marbling in water. It's a bit of a free flow situation. You would crack up. I've got a few colours that are notorious for crumbling, and dark blue is one of them. Ochre is another. Right, let's get some lighter blues in here. I'll do a 2 and a 3, and then we'll mix them up. Right, come on, into a stick. Thank you. You want them roughly the same length as each other. If you're doing a 3, you're stacking it on top so it's in that sort of triangle shape. Then let's put all my excess clay out of the way. You get your stick, you hold it to the desk on one side, and with the other hand you're going to twist. So you're just going to roll it, and you keep going up till you're twisted. Then you make sure at the ends are also twisted and not just laying straight, because that will leave a big lump. Same with this. Triangles also roll out fine. Squares do not. Squares, you end up with a stick of solid colour that isn't twisted. If you find that it breaks a bit, like say one of the colours breaks like that and it's not twisting again, hold above the break and twist, then hold below the break without it doing that. You can just smudge it back on and twist, and that'll be fine. So again, make sure you get right up to the ends. Right, then make sure they're about the same length as each other. You put them together, and if you had more than 2 strands, if you had 3, you'll put them in a triangle. If you had 5 plus, you would start doing 2 sticks and then twist them together. So it depends on how many you've got, but you're going to bring them all together and then do a twist so they're all intermingled like that. Fold over, twist again, then roll it into a ball. Now, if you use it at this stage, you get quite a blocky camo print. So let's chop that in half and I'll show you. See, quite a blocky camo type effect. If you want to go to that level of swell, you're bringing it out into a stick again, all together like that, just joining where I cut it, and then you're holding one side and twisting it on itself so that you've got tight swells going up your stick. Now at this stage you're gonna make sure you don't trap any air, but you're gonna just bring that stick round in different directions into a ball.
Bex Art says, ooh, I like that too.
So thank you. So now you can use it like this and you get a nice liney base, or to get that swell, what you need to do is you form it into a cube like that, get your tissue blade, and you're going to chop the outsides off, but this is not wasted clay. What you're going to do is you get the liney side and face it towards the swirly side, so that the swirly side is facing outwards. Does that make sense? And if you want to wrap it around an already liney bit, you can do that. So it doesn't have to fit exactly in the space. So long as all the lines are covered with swirls, you're good. So like that. That brings you to having a whole block with that swirly design. I've never found those join lines, and I've been at it for years and probably made this swirly pattern several hundreds of times. Now, if you're wanting to do a really tight swirl, like say you wanted to do hair for an animal, I then take that, don't chop the outside off, it's just wasted effort, but bring that through a third time into extremely tight swirls. See, like that. Really tight swirls. Yeah? And again, make sure they go all the way to the end. And like before, gather it up. So you've got 3 different stages of tightness of swirls. Your loose camo print, your medium one, which is this, and this tight one that I'm doing. And you have the option of using it as...
Thanks for showing. You explain everything so well.
Oh, no worries. As liney clay, which can be really pretty in and of itself. You can flatten that out into a base and it looks stunning. But if you want the swirls, you've got to cut the outside and flip them round like I showed you before. And this blue should show up the extremely tight. Yeah, it does. Shows it up well. So roughly cutting off the outside, doesn't matter how thick or thin you do this, and flip those bits around like that. Flip. Sorry. Thank you, Fairy Hedgehog. That is really nice. I love the swirly patterns. It was one of the first patterns I've actually learned how to do in clay, and I love them so much. I have done them ever since, and the biggest block I've ever made of swirly clay was about that sort of size. It was bigger than a 800-gram loaf of bread, and I turned it into a massive dragon. I did it in sort of fire colours. Can you see, Fergus, how the tight swells, it can look like fur? So I use my stage 3 swirling for hair. But yeah, stage 2 makes really good water. So let's put a couple of little black dots in for our dolphin's eyes. Tiny. Make sure they're the same size, because it will look like there's something medically wrong if you've got one eye big and one eye small. I find it very interesting. There's certain things that people don't notice if you get it wrong in your model, and there are certain things that everyone spots. If you forget to put a spine in on animals we expect to have spines, it's noticeable. If you have limbs that are not completely symmetrical, we as a species enjoy symmetry and find beauty and health in symmetrical looking things. So we spot it when you got things like that out.
Thanks. It says 3 laughing smileys.
Right, let's just get that point. Right, here we go. I reckon that's a good dolphin. Yeah? So I'll get these guys baked up. Now, I don't know. What I'm thinking, let's find that drawer. I've got a drawer with some little pearls in it. It's amazing. When I first started out claying, I said I'm going to have very little extra bits. I'm only going to have what I definitely know I need and nothing more. Well, I'm coming into my 4th year now, and I just inherited so much stuff. That's it. So this is my drawer full of little pearls and little stones and shiny things.
It's adorable, Carly. You're so talented.
Thank you. When I started out, look, this is one of the first things I made. That is really rough. You don't start out being able to make decent things. I keep that on my desk to show me how far I've got. And I look at people who are on 10 years and I'm like, that is even better looking. I'm amazed by that. I don't know how you did it. You can't really substitute practice. And where I use claying to escape from pain, I do it a lot. Right, I found you can get these little pearl nuggets that are kind of wavy looking to me. So I got myself a string of them, and what I think I'm going to do is just get 2 and put them in around the base of that heart, just because it makes the piece even more interesting. I'll show you once I push them in.
Charlie Start says, I was just about to say the progress you've made has been great to watch as your clay skills have blossomed.
Thank
so
you.
Glad to see all this from the start.
You're a great friend, Charlie Star, and I'm very lucky to have you.
Bex Art says, some people are naturally brilliant to start, others are gradual.
I was not
Absolutely.
naturally brilliant to start. What I was very, very bored, very sick and very in pain. I used to work from a tray on my bed and I could not hold a pen. It's really bad. But claying, little bit by little bit over the days, it's been good rehab for my arms. My lower body is still shot. I still can't walk to the end of the street, barely with... I just about make it to the end of the street every day, once a day, and come back. But my arm strength, I'm one of the strongest people in the house now. And it's all thanks to the fact that when you are absorbed in what you're making, you don't notice that your body's screaming at you.
Charlie Star says, you are too about being naturally talented.
Thank you.
Originals says, love the swirly effect.
So, what do you reckon with the... Sorry, just focusing. Couple of bits of pearl in there. Just looks like waves breaking off the crystals. So, what I'll do is I'll get this baked up. Got to make sure I put my maker's mark in it, which if any of you haven't seen, because I usually do this off camera, what I do is I go to the very back of the statue, I do a triangle. Sorry, the heads are in the... It's hard to show.
I think it is.
Right, I'm going to do it and then I'll hold it up. I do a triangle and I put a C in each corner for Carly's Creative Clay. And majority of everything I make, I put this on. I need to remember really to start putting the year of that I made it as well. And it's just so that you can prove that you're the manufacturer and it is a one of a kind. So what are we? 2019.
Yep.
My pin tool is one of my favourite tools. I remember last time I did this, I had to rub it out because I did 219 and I wondered where I'd gone wrong. Yep.
Charlie Star says conditioning all this clay has also helped with hand strength and ability of your hands too.
Yep. And especially when clay gets really dry and you've got to add in liquid polymer clay just to soften it up. It really is a hand workout. I've had to sit there for hours with my hands in hot water after conditioning clay, but it works.
Charlie
So,
Star says
Carly Creative Clay 2019, but it's not so obvious. I know people who actually make full-on stickers, like little cane slices with their mark, but I think it stands out too much. Whilst I'm at it, for completeness, if you want to know how to get a perfectly round base like that, you start out with a decent ball, push it flat, and then you're going to get your rolling pin. Where did I put my roll? There we go.
Charlie Star says a date stamp would definitely be good though and help with your progress journey too.
You're going to go
You could just stamp straight into the clay.
one roll. Yeah, I did try and make one at one point, but I find it easier with a pin tool. I'm doing a single roll from the centre out to the edge and then doing a little turn, and it gets you a perfectly round base. And the more you finagle it, the more you get that perfect round shape. Once you've got it where you want it to be perfectly round, I then get the edge of it and push that. Oh, that's another thing to show you. When you roll at the surface, can you see the top side has gone to quite a looser swell than the bottom side? The side that you put against the board holds the design, whereas the top side gets pushed out by the rolling pin. So you've got another design choice there with your swirly clay. Do you decide to keep the top side as the loose swell, or do you flip it over and have the tight one? This, let's see, can I show you? That's what the loose swell looked like. I decided I wanted to use the tighter one side of it for this. Don't fall over. There we go. But all the design choices. Once you've decided which side, you're going to go around with your finger and just push the edge so that it goes into that nice little rounded platform shape. The use that platform giving your work a plinth has is huge. You don't have to make something so structurally stable that it can stand up on its own. If I put those two dolphins on a sideboard, they'd fall over. But because they're attached to that lovely big bit of clay, you can keep it all upright. So I am a big advocate in bases, and they set the model off far better. So yeah, that's how you make a base and how you make some dolphins. I hope you've all enjoyed this. If you want me to make anything at any point, do let me know, and I will be happy to make one of my streams guided by a subject that you would wish.
Charlie Star says, oh sorry, not using an actual stamp. They just meant marking the date as well as the
Okay. Yeah, I did put the date on this one. This dolphin, I'll get it baked, and I think this one I'm going to use Duraclear Gloss Varnish by Art Deco. It's pretty cheap, can be got in the UK. The only other varnish that I use other than this is Ronsil Floor Varnish. What you're looking for on your varnish is polyurethane. If it's not polyurethane, you're risking problems with your clay, because I wouldn't even say some, quite a few varnishes react with polymer clay and never dry properly, so they remain forever sticky. Or they do one that's even more freaking annoying and tricksy. They will dry perfectly, and then about couple of weeks to a month or so later, they start to go sticky. And you can literally leave fingerprints and hear your finger being taken off it. That level of sticky. So I still have a bottle of acrylic varnish to give to Arty Hearty Life for her paintings, because this stuff, don't use it on your polymer clay. It reacts. It'll ruin your piece.
Charlie Star says, I think you should maybe try creating something that's beyond your normal comfort zone, just to see what happens. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by the outcome.
Oh, I have. That massive dragon I made. I'll show you way beyond my comfort zone. 2 seconds. Whoop. This fella. That
You made every scale separate.
I made every scale separately. The only thing I didn't make on this dude was the vase. So I did the eyes, the teeth, the flames. And there's videos, lots of videos of me making this on my YouTube. So if you want to see how to do it. But that was a mammoth project. And again, he's available on my Etsy shop. My dolphins that I've just made, I will bake and varnish them and get them in my shop. Probably for the same amount as the other items in the range with those crystal hearts. I think that's about £18 or £19, but I can't be certain. My brain is rubbish at holding numbers.
Life says, I will come and see you soon, and then wow to the dragon.
Ooh.
Star says, I meant the subject matter, honey. You should really explain things better.
No worries.
Like trying to do more humans, because I know you've
Oh,
done some.
yeah, I'm still avoiding humans. I'm looking for... I'm going to need to do a lot more practicing off of camera with them, because I'm not good at them. And the human brain spots flaws in humans far more than they do in animals or anything else. We're hardwired to spot it. So people who sculpt humans, kudos. Massive kudos. I'll get there though. Anyway, everyone have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week, okay? Bye for now. Bye.